Welcome. Welcome to the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting, February 19th, 2015. First order of business, silence your phones. I do have an announcement. I am now a grandmother. I just can't keep that to myself, so thank you. 6 pounds, 13 ounces, baby boy. Beautiful, curly black hair. Sorry, just had to do that. First item of business is roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner. Charles Ainsworth.
Present.
Ike Aikenwande. Connie Scothorn. Corey Bates. You have a quorum.
Great. Has everyone been able to read the minutes, and do we have a motion? Ike and Connie, all in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are approved. There are no cases withdrawn. There are no continuance requests. There are no items on the consent docket. The cases for individual consideration, item A, which is 627 Couch Drive, aka, this is, I don't know why it's got a different address, but 626 Robert S. Kerr. Is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward? We have kind of been changing up how we want to do this. If you would state your name very quickly, and then I'll have Michael say a few words on this.
Okay. Hans Butzer with Butzer Gardner Architects.
Aaron Pilot, Butzer Gardner Architects.
Okay, thanks. Michael?
Yes, this is an application for a 34-unit condominium project between Kerr and Couch and east of Lee. And the reason it has two addresses is because the Kerr address is the current address, and they are asking to change the address for the project to the Couch Drive address. We've reviewed the project. There are a couple of items that require variances, namely a portion of the parking lot will be provided in decomposed granite, and of course that portion of the parking lot cannot be properly striped, so they're proposing not to stripe the parking lot. And then thirdly, there is a variance required for a short wall on the north frontage of the property facing Kerr, because the wall is 8 foot 8 inches tall and the maximum height is 8 feet. We've recommended approval. We recommended that the committee approve the project, subject to a condition that they obtain the appropriate variances from the Board of Adjustment. That completes the presentation.
Okay. Carry on.
Thank you. We're very excited about this project and how it is trying to celebrate this fabulous site right across just north of the Music Hall, Civic Center Music Hall. It is a 3-story owner-occupied residential structure. It engages the building line, really tries to serve as a really good block-defining building to create really nice walkable sidewalk edges, perimeter condition. One of the key urban design strategies is to build a nice rhythm of walkability along both the north and the south and western edges, working with, kind of in that 25 to 30 foot building bay rhythm. The south facade that's up here on the screen is kind of the main front facade of the project. The core of its kind of architectural moves are motivated by these great views of Bicentennial Park and the downtown high-rise skyline. So you see the facades kind of peeling out, open in that direction, that kind of gesture. The north facade is much more subdued. It is more of a more softly faceted facade that acknowledges kind of a more quiet RS Kerr edge. We're looking at primary materials of brick, masonry basically, as well as architectural metal. All the windows are more vertically proportioned, kind of celebrate the human individual scale, and to kind of reinforce that nice kind of pedestrian-oriented sense of walkability and proportion. All the landscaping for the project, because it's a building that's pushed right up to the building edges, it takes on a much more urban quality. On the south side, we are maintaining the Project 180 design. On the north side, we are bringing in street trees, much in this kind of similar rhythm and placement as Project 180, as well as on that western edge. We intend, as it's indicated in the plans, to use a planter to help define, and this would be in part of a revocable permit, to define the threshold between this kind of more private zone outside the residential unit at ground floor to create that edge condition separation from the public right-of-way or sidewalk zone. So we're very excited about using the decomposed granite in the interior lot to help with drainage, permeability, but otherwise, meeting the landscape requirements in part with the urban edge as well as on the interior courtyard planting. Any questions?
Could you elaborate on that, the planter? Are those the planters that are shown in the site plan?
That is correct.
Okay, so they're just at grade?
Yeah, what we're envisioning is really it was more like a Core 10 planter that's raised up 12 to 15 inches, and then with the plant material set in there, and that would be irrigated. That helps, again, create that edge, the separation between the public and the private zones, and it softens up the kind of the manner in which the building transitions into the public realm.
So that's a tiny bit different than what you've shown in your rendering, right?
Yes, from the original, that south rendering, that's correct. This is kind of an added layer. This came about through feedback through our negotiations with urban renewal recommendations from RTKL as well as our own intent to create, a higher sense of value for those ground floor units.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Hey, sorry, Corey is, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
The two different metal panels that were in your package, could you talk about where each one of those are within the project?
Yeah, so at this point, we're looking at using the flat lock panel on the RS Kerr side to kind of reinforce that kind of undulating faceting surface. We think that the light quality would be really quite beautiful in the early mornings or late in the day. It is north side, and so it's really in those early or late day conditions where you'd get really nice light, natural light crossing that facade. And then on the interior elevations, we're still looking at the option of either the masonry-based stucco or the metal panel. That there is also that deeply corrugated metal panel that we're still looking at possibly using as an alternate for the north facade.
Okay.
Here, I did it too. I did want to say that I do appreciate the undulating facade. I think that's really adds more interest and gives a little bit more scale to the street. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would agree how the building addresses the street is very nice from an urban standpoint. It looked like there was a mechanical zone on the roof. Do you have an anticipation of what would be up there and how much of that would be visible or not?
The idea, we'd have, the current plan is we'd have condensers for each unit would go up on the roof, and then you have forced air units inside, forced air mechanical units inside each residence. So we'd be talking about, individual condensers for each apartment that wouldn't be that big. And then we thought, idea of positioning them in the middle basically, minimizes views from all sides on the street. And we do have a little bit of parapet, to help screen that as well.
And given the dense urban environment that we're situated, views from far back are, not very common.
Is there anyone else? You have more?
Yeah, just one more.
Keep going.
If that's okay. The wall on the north side, that's the extension of the building,
On the eastern end?
yes. Will there be a metal gate within that wall?
Yes.
Okay. And that'll just be framed out in the wall versus the wall stopping and metal gate and then starting again? Or I guess I should just ask if there's, what the plan is.
I believe that with the 8'8" height, obviously contingent upon the zoning Board of Adjustment, I think we'd have to stop the masonry for the gate because I don't think there'd be enough height clearance to get in and out of there. The idea is that we'd have, I think it was on one of the plans, the gate detail, we'd use metal slots turned at an angle to increase the opacity at the gate and the screen area.
And the color would be to match the adjacent masonry. So it basically blends in.
Any other comments from the committee? Any comments from the galley, the audience? Do we have any motions?
Betsy?
Uh-huh.
I did have one comment I wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of. Mr. Rizzo did talk about a lot of streetscape elements and so on and so forth with this project, but we didn't receive, and we're not able to receive the actual details of their treatments for all three sides of the project in time to go into this packet, and therefore those are going to be reviewed separately under a revision to this certificate of approval, and wanted to know whether the committee had any concern about staff reviewing that or having it brought back to committee.
I have no concerns. Anybody? And also, the planter will need to have an administrative approval as well, I think. That doesn't exceed the 5% or whatever that is required?
It's 20.
20, okay. So it doesn't exceed that? The materials that you have to review? Okay. Okay, so now, Ron, would you like to
Let
speak?
me add one more thing. Ron Bradshaw, this is on urban renewal property, and so we do go through, as he's mentioned, the review process with urban renewal. Jim Talbert is real careful about the landscaping and the streetscape. So we've done the design development approval, and we've still got the construction drawing approval, and we committed at the last meeting that we would present the landscape and streetscape design for approval with prior to the CDs being approved. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on what the streetscape looks like.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this before we make a motion? Got a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C of the staff report, for the condition that, A, the applicant obtain approval of variance from the applicable parking lot paving and striping requirements and the standards for the maximum height of the front yard fences, and B, we also provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance request from the parking lot paving and parking lot striping standards and for a variance request from front yard fence standards. That's my motion.
That was an excellent motion. Do we have a second? Okay, that was a Chuck and Ike motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Your project is approved. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
When are
there's
you
going to
gonna
be a lot
break
of
ground?
construction over there.
When are you
Doing our
starting,
best.
Ron?
Excuse me?
When are you starting?
Not soon enough?
We determined we're not going to start it until half of the units were pre-sold. There are 34 units, so 17 need to be pre-sold under contract, and 13 are at this point. So we plan on starting May, June timeframe. Probably start site work in May and foundations in June. So,
What's the price range?
one bedrooms are $177,000, and two bedroom, there's both a couple of lofts that have been sold, and there's flats that range up to $366,000.
So these are for sale products.
All for sale,
That's excellent.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
being here and bringing it to us. The next item is 100 South E.K. Gaylord. Is the applicant present?
Yes. I'm Scott Parker from TAP Architecture. I've got two design consultants with me today who will be doing part of our presentation. We'll try to not have it go too long. It's 34 pages on the PDF. I'll have Robert Manley from Jacobs in Dallas, who's doing a part of our rail work, and then, thank you, and Stan Zwalek from Hare Shout Landscape Architects in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to have Michael just give us a rundown real quickly, and then I'll have you guys start. So this will give you time to cue things up.
Yeah, this project is multifaceted. It has many moving parts. Primarily, the biggest thing is that they're going to be cleaning up the facades of the existing building. And then beyond that, they are providing a variety of parking and open plaza areas through the introduction of new landscaping, new pavers, new concrete with saw cut design. There are a couple of canopies being proposed and involved with this. A couple new trash enclosures. One of the other big factors, in case you haven't noticed it already from looking at the plans, is in order to provide all that space for the plaza areas, they are reducing the northbound lanes at E.K. Gaylord from 3 lanes to 2. And we've reviewed this case against the applicable development standards and design guidelines and found no issues, and we're recommending approval.
So, who wants to start?
I'll begin with a general overview. Let's see if this works here. So, excellent. Okay. So this is City of Oklahoma City Project MB 1194. I will give a general overview for the 4 major scope items that are involved. 2 of them, or 3 of them, are in regards to your purview, and then 1 is the Bricktown Plaza east of the BNSF rail. So the other 3 are the Gaylord Plaza, which of course runs between Reno and Sheridan along Gaylord. And then we have the component of the historic building renovation rehabilitation. We're rehabilitating it for additional office and retail use, try to make it more revenue generating, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. Then the other portion of it is the railway, which is a tunnel project, effectively, to connect downtown Oklahoma City through the station to the west portion of the canal and the Bricktown Plaza. So a lot of connectivity involved as part of this project to kind of bring all of those 4 elements together.
And we got a preview of the rail tunnel recently, right?
Yes.
Yeah, last
Do you-
month.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes, you have. So that's a general overview showing from the site plan here. I'll let Stan discuss it a little bit, and I'll jump in when the slides turn to me.
This is the overall landscape plan for the E.K. Gaylord Boulevard side of the project. So we have an open, elegant plaza in front of the station to welcome visitors and to highlight the renovated station. We've located an arrival court for passenger drop-off and visitor drop-off to the north, and the parking lot also to the north. And to the south, there'll be new office and retail spaces. So we've created a plaza, pedestrian plaza, to serve the office tenants on a daily basis, and a parking lot to the south to serve the retail. And then you see also the Bricktown connection. That's the underpass connection under the elevated rail connecting to the Bricktown side. This is an enlargement plan for the Gaylord Plaza in the north end of the site. So we're proposing cast-in-place concrete paving for the plaza. It'll be a saw-cut grid pattern, approximately 8 by 8. So just keeping it simple and minimal. Then in the arrival court, we'll be using looking at using a clay paver and a herringbone pattern, providing some texture and nice contrast to the concrete paving of the plaza. We have 2 handicap spaces as well as 2 spaces for an electrical car parking. So prioritizing the handicap and the electrical car parking. We're going to pull in the Project 180 precast concrete pavers in those spaces, try to tie in, unify the site with the context of the streetscape design standards. There's a dumpster enclosure for trash pickup located to the north, and car parking as well. And I'll also point out we're renovating the existing ADA accessible ramp and Amtrak entry, so we're going to be expanding that, making that a little more gracious entryway there. And Scott will talk more about the canopy that will be built here at the entrance, also providing some bicycle parking as part of the multimodal aspect and trying to promote multimodal transportation. To the south, we've proposed sets of seating immediately west of the building facade, so set under some ornamental trees, some seating west of the building, and then the office plaza here, we have elevated raised planters with seating. They help define the streetscape public edge and also create a space for the office users on a daily basis, but also thinking that this could be used for larger gatherings. We're looking at using a retractable bollard here to increase flexibility. Maybe they can drive in some food trucks or something for events. To the south, we have car parking. Again, we're using the clay paver with the herringbone pattern and looking at maybe pulling in some of the Project 180 precast pavers for some of the banding in the parking lot and delineating the spaces. Dumpster enclosure, again, is pushed toward the perimeter and to the south at Reno. We're going to be using many of the Project 180 site elements. Using the night bench, which is by Forms and Services. This is the electrical charger standard. The office plaza, we're looking at doing a custom design for the planters. This is an image, it's a Dutch manufacturer, but our planters will be smaller, but the same idea that it'll be raised with wood platting, wood decking for seating, and it'll be irrigated with planting. We'll use bollards to help control traffic and for pedestrian safety. It would be about a 36-inch height with 4.5-inch diameter stainless steel bollard. Again, the Project 180 site elements for trash receptacles, bike racks, and tree grates. And the light pole as well, you have this 16-foot pedestrian to service the walkway, and then the higher 30-foot Bega for the roadway. These are by Bega. Real quickly, these are the planting plans that are presented. So we're staying true to the Project 180 landscape master plan, using the bald cypress along the entire length of E.K. Gaylord Boulevard, pausing only for that opening at the Gaylord Plaza. So we have a double row of bald cypress. We're using some evergreen junipers to screen the dumpster. And then in the planters, we're using Amsonia. I have some photos of that too. It has a finer texture, so it can be experienced up close. In front of the plaza here, we're thinking of Oklahoma redbud. So there's kind of a vase-shaped, more ornamental, provide some scale for the seating there. In the arrival court, using London plane tree, a much larger urban tree to help provide scale and to the big open plaza. And a simple ground plane of ornamental grasses. And to the north, to help screen the parking, we're using blocks of it's Nacella, it's an ornamental grass, and Rus Grollo, it's a low shrub. So responding to the scale and speed of E.K. Gaylor Boulevard, keeping simple, large massings of these plants. And again, you see the bald cypress LA continuing. These are some images to help illustrate the plant selection. So the focus has been on using proven winners, things that have done well here in the urban condition. This is London plane tree, very good, very durable urban tree, exfoliating bark. This is the bald cypress. It's a semi-evergreen tree, a nice fall color. And these are the understory shrubs, the gray owl juniper, where it would be located at the dumpster enclosure. And the Grollo sumac is to the north by the parking. This has a nice fall, red fall color. And these are the perennials. Amsonia, this Arkansas Blue Star, this is the plant that would be in the raised planter in the office plaza. There's a real nice texture to it. This is Nacella, the Texas needlegrass, which would be used for the drifts of the ornamental grass. And Liriope lily turf. This is a ground cover which is very commonly used throughout the Project 180 streetscapes. We'll be using that as well. This is the elevation and sections of the renovated ramp up to the Amtrak entry. This is one of my favorite details of the project. We're going to use the existing BNSF guardrail motif that's found up on the elevated tracks, and try to use that as a post in the design of the guardrail and handrail for this ramped entry. And this sheet is a repetition of this slide here. So, and I'll hand off to Scott to talk about the canopy.
So this illustrates one of the architectural items that we'll be constructing on the site, and this is a canopy to identify connection to a future streetcar stop. Now, we understand there'll be a streetcar stop on Reno and Sheridan, but there's also a future one planned on Gaylord, to which this would directly address. If you look across here, so streetcar stop may be located over here, and so we can connect people to this ADA accessible ramp and entrance to the building here, and it also is directly located off of the arrival court. The structure here is steel, okay, it's made out of steel, painted to match the anodized aluminum, which just means it would be a grayish color to match the anodized aluminum of the main historic building. The system at the top is a glass panel that we will have on the upper panels. So this is primarily just an identification structure and a slight bit of rain protection. This slide is a little bit light, but I think you can see it on your printed copies. One of the other architectural elements that we're building is the dumpster enclosures. So these are a CMU block, a burnished block, smooth face. We are currently specifying a brand called Trenwith, if you're familiar with that. We will have a relatively fancy steel gate system, heavy-duty gate system. The basis for this is a gate that is found in the drawings, original drawings from 1933, in another location on the property, and so we're sort of imitating them and building them here. In between, so this now takes us to the east, in between the BNSF west and east walls. So what TAP Architecture is doing here is rebuilding what's called vomitories, that is the exit from the lower tunnel up to the platform. So if you were taking the Amtrak, you would go up and arrive on the platform level via stairs or elevator, and TAP is renovating these glass enclosures. They are there now, but we're taking them down and we're rebuilding those. There's an elevation of them here. They're much the same, except our goal is to try to make them more transparent, so the experience that you will have will be a reminder of what it may have been, as best we can do it in 2015, of what it may have been in 1933. So you come up and there's a lot of light. So we're trying to use a glass system that is mostly glass and a small amount of aluminum storefront system. There are 2 existing elevator shafts where in the 30s they would convey a baggage material from the lower level up to the upper level. There was glass in it in the original drawings. We merely want to restore that glass. Currently, it's metal panel covering it up. This is the tunnel. I'll let Robert Manley discuss this.
Thanks, Scott. The purpose of the tunnel, obviously, is to get pedestrians either from the Bricktown side into the station building or to the Amtrak platform. It's a means of conveyance. What we tried to do is take the existing space that is approximately about 15 feet wide. It's got a vaulted ceiling. We've taken that and we've splayed it out from 15 feet to about 42 feet on the Bricktown side, the east facade. The idea is, one, is to make it more inviting, to get as much light in as possible. As Scott said, using the storefront, we're using a clear glass storefront with a vestibule, trying to control a little bit of the heating and cooling that's going to be in the space. It's going to be very difficult, obviously, because you open both doors and you lose some of that, but we'll be able to maintain most of what's in the underpass space. From the floor of the existing station to the Bricktown Plaza is about a 2'7" foot drop. We're going to take care of that using a ramp. Right as you come from the existing space, you'll ramp down at an 8% grade. It'll be very subtle. It'll just kind of blend in with the floor surface, and then take you out on level with the Bricktown side. With the fact that we're running an underpass underneath of a heavy freight load, we are having to put additional columns in the middle in order that way we can get as much span as we can and spread that opening and open that space as much as possible. As far as the surfaces inside the underpass, surfaces inside the underpass, we're looking at being sympathetic to and complementary to the existing building, but not duplicating exactly what's there. So we're using similar colors, but we're using a more modern vandal-resistant material. It's actually a solid surface material that is about 2 centimeters thick, and we're setting it up in a running bond pattern on the walls, and those will be lit from a cove space on a flat ceiling with LED lights that will bounce the ceiling and down the walls. The benefits of using the LEDs is that we will be able to change the colors with different events that happen in town. So we will be able to use the blue from the Thunder, what color is the baseball? Is that blue as well? Oh, sorry. I think it's blue and gray, yes. You would get blue, yeah. In most times it would be just a white, very pure light, and then you'd be able to have colors for events. One of the big key pieces of this was how to heat and cool it. We did not want to put air conditioning units out on the Bricktown Plaza side. So what we did is up on the north side of the underpass, we actually created a small room, a mechanical space. In that mechanical space, we have two air conditioning units that will draw air through a grate that faces towards the Bricktown side, and then those will provide to cassettes up in the recess or the soffit in the tunnel itself and be able to blow air to both sides. So on the facade, the northernmost pilaster has what we're deeming a grill work, but it'll be a very decorative type grill work. It'll blend with the idea, and that will allow that transmission of air. On the south side, we will have the same grill work, but it'll actually be a false grill work. We want to keep that balance. We want to keep the idea of the Art Deco look of the existing building. So that portal space that's facing towards Bricktown is very Art Deco, very complementary to the existing building, but it's actually out of concrete, which we'll use a deep penetrating stain on, and in two different colors. One is going to be kind of a buff tone, which is very similar to the limestone, and a darker color that is going to be complementary to the granite that's on the existing station. Again, the storefront itself is just as minimal as we can possibly make it in order to get as much light, and the silver, the clear anodized aluminum will actually fit with what Scott will talk about here shortly as the canopy that's just outside. So this is an elevation of our section through the underpass. You can see how we go from a higher elevation down 2'7" ramp through the space to the Bricktown side. We show benches in here, but we have since we submitted this, we actually have removed those. Let me step back one. There are benches on the outside that we feel that could be potentially a nice gathering space, so we have kept those out there. The base of those is concrete with an Ipe style wood surface, which is a very, very durable, high impact wood. And so these walls inside will be where we will have the running bond of these solid panels. The solid panels are not what you would think of in terms of small tile. These are actually like 3 feet tall, 5 and 6 feet long. They're a very, very large solid surface panel. This is sideways. This just shows some of the colors that we're looking at. Interior, we're using a limestone representative color as well as a darker color to match that granite. From the exterior, again, we're using the deep penetrating stains, and then the Ipe on the wood surface. And we actually are showing black iron for those grill work, but we've since had some conversations. I think we're going to tend more towards the anodized aluminum. That way there's a system, we're not changing that system and trying to add something new to it.
So generally, just to give you an idea of what's going on inside the building, and exteriorly, that'll be what the next few slides are dedicated to. So it is a historic rehab project. That's what we're doing on the main portion. The building is divided into the north, which would be left on here, the old terminal, the original terminal that you're probably familiar with. The south portions are an open unused space currently, which will turn into retail and office. And then in the southmost portion is the existing retailer Pink Itzel, who is currently in business and is expected to stay. So this is the general range of what is going on internally. Now, functions inside, we're not dictating, but we're trying to plan for what they might be. And so we're just theorizing retail or restaurant or these other kind of things, though it doesn't have a great effect on what the outside of the building will be. Externally, what is happening here is primarily maintenance and repair. And so the stone is dirty and has deposits and has rusting and staining. So externally it is primarily stone cleaning, metal fascia cleaning and repair, railing replacement, and then window replacement where necessary. We're also putting interior storms in every location that I'm aware of. So, and any glass replacement that occurs will be clear, low E, no tint, and I believe that's stated pretty much everywhere. We're definitely replacing these glass panels, for instance, in the retail and office building portion. Continuing down to Pink Itzel. Some things may occur while we're doing renovation here, by the way. I'll just mention it conversationally. When we're doing stone cleaning, temporarily we'll have to remove and replace signage, but it will go back the same as it is. Same thing here. Cleaning stone, replacing rails, cleaning and updating fascia. And that's actually the end. Thank you.
Okay. I have some questions, but I thought I'd hand it over to the committee first.
First, I'd like to say that I think this is a great project, both for the Santa Fe building and for the city in general. And I think everything has been handled extremely well. So I commend you guys on that. Have there been any considerations made involving the stone cleaning? Should some of the stone become damaged or found to be uncleanable, is there any action plan or considerations for those kinds of circumstances?
So we have a series of tests that we're requesting that are still in process, okay, to find out, if it's microbial, rust and whatever. We've had test cleanings done on a few areas, and it's cleaned quite well, and I don't know if that's part of your question, but it is cleanable, some of the surfaces that we've tried to do. But of course, we want to clean it so that it stays clean for quite a while, right? So some testing is being done right now to find out if it's just external or if anything is coming from the backside. We're also doing some repointing, and we're doing stone repair. Now, largely, all of the stones are intact, but there are a few, and I don't know the number in my head right now, but a few may require replacement. But it is a stone from Texas. It's Texas Quarries, Cordova Cream. I believe I have the name right. And so this is available. We can find the stone for repair. We have matches in our office, and we've taken pictures, and it matches the stone that is there. So we would replace it with a matching stone for an area where a stone was really damaged or otherwise. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, that's great. And then just my other question. I see that there's the potential for an art installation at the south end of the project. Has there been any consideration for the Gaylord Plaza having a piece of art or something within that realm? I understand the scale of the plaza and how that relates to the building, and I'm completely comfortable with the scale. But if there's been any conversation about maybe small features within that plaza that give it some interest in its expanse.
I'm going to answer what I believe is our stance or opinion, is that we're trying to leave the plaza at the main building that everyone's familiar with, the shot that you see in all the historic photographs. This part here, we're trying to keep this relatively unfettered. We've kept the plaza open. There are no trees in that area. So in that portion, I'm going to say no. And the part that we showed it down on the southwest corner of Gaylord Plaza is just a potential location. Of course, the art would come in a separate DDRC proposal, so it's sort of a placeholder right now. But I would say in this portion of the site, no, because we want to keep the historic feeling of openness that it has always had, and thus we've held back on developing and planting and light poles and all kinds of things around this part of the facade.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to reiterate, great project, so excited to save a building in such a sensitive way. Curious, how on earth are you going to do a food truck thing? I'm just curious.
Carefully.
Because you've got like I guess bollards that will be able to go into the ground.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Go, Stan.
Yeah, I mean, the design we've really tried to prioritize the pedestrian and push parking to the perimeter, but there is the idea that we can't protect all the future uses, so perhaps, having a retractable bollard that could be set below grade, so you could pull a vehicle in if necessary. They would have to back directly out, so it wouldn't be like they would have to carefully maneuver. But we did look at, well, maybe we could take out two of the middle planters and just have more openness, but then we felt that then we lost a lot of the seating that more on a daily use would be beneficial, so.
Okay. I was just curious, and you answered my question.
So
You have to back
they could maybe
out,
pull into
so.
the parking, or even from the parallel parking on the Gaylord.
And then I had another question, and this is a great slide to address this. Well, looks like you have mostly handicap parking on the south side. Is that correct? Or are those little spaces between the parking spaces not?
We will have 1 or 2 handicap spots down there, but
Correct. It's not on this rendering, but there'll be a handicap at the nearest spot on the south. So 1 in the south parking, and then 2 in the arrival court.
I was just going to worry about the retail if only handicap parking was in there, so.
No. So we're using the cadence of the street trees to plant, to put the car parking in between. We have this idea of having, barrier-free and shared space. So it's a flush condition where the parking meets the sidewalk, and then we have just a barrier curb.
Okay, great. That's very nice. And one question for the staff: the elevation on the Bricktown side really isn't in our purview, is it?
I was just about to make that comment.
Okay.
The project straddles 2 design districts, one being downtown and the other being Bricktown. And the line between the 2 is the eastern wall, retaining wall of the trestle, or the viaduct, whatever. Sometimes people call it different things. But anyway, it's the eastern wall. And so the portions of the project that lie from that face of the wall east into Bricktown were reviewed and presented to the Bricktown Urban Design Committee last week. So the facade that you saw for that wall, the east wall of the trestle that was made, it's part of the presentation today and also in your packet. It's really more for informational purposes for you than anything else. That part of the project, the east facade, the way it looks right now, has already been approved by the Bricktown Committee last week. So you have the second half of the project, and that's everything to the west of that east wall of the trestle.
Okay. That's all of my questions. Any other questions?
Yeah, I definitely want to second the comments that have been made earlier as far as you guys' attention to detail, as far as the historical aspects. But this is more of a general question. As far as that underpass connection, how are you guys going to have hours of service, hours of operation, and what's that going to look like for that?
So there is no final answer to that, and I would only speculate on that. Now, I have my client here today, and if she runs up to answer the question, I will let her do that. But it has been asked before, and people do want to know the use. But that operationally is outside of our scope. And so we're doing our best to make a space that is flexible for hours. I will say that it was asked in one of the Bricktown presentations, and so they want to know how it is used. But at this point, our scope is to try to make a space that we think could be used a few hours a day, or it could be used 24 hours a day.
Well, I just want to thank you for a very great presentation. And the landscaping
Thank
is
you.
wonderful. I know you're always waiting for me to say, except for the landscaping, but it's beautiful. I think it's going to be great. And I appreciate that you did this, which is going to be a really useful building now, which is what it's so not been for all these years. And yet you were so careful in the design. I think it's just going to be wonderful. And I will make a motion if it's time.
You can make a motion, we can get a second, and I want to make sure that anyone from the audience that's going to speak. But that's fine, go ahead.
Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design Review District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Okay, that was a Connie and Ike motion. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this project? Since there is not anyone, we have a motion to approve the project. And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and questions.
This is his question.
So we have a preliminary schedule, an architecturally set up schedule that is in for our client's review. And so it would say that it starts sometime June, July 2015 this year. Okay? And then it is completed by September or October of 2016. That's the plan.
Great. Yeah. And once again, thanks for a great presentation. That was very good. Our next item is we have a demolition ordinance amendment. Pardon me, can't speak. Lisa, do you want to?
Yes. For many, many months, we have been working on what we think are improvements to the guidelines for demolition approvals. Betsy and Gigi have been part of kind of a core little focus group. We've convened a couple of times over the past year to review it. It was based on, the framework of it was based on the Historic Preservation Ordinance, but it's been tweaked to be responsive to the non-historic preservation aspects of all of the committees. So this text to this document is what we reviewed and presented at the public meeting in September. I think many of you were there. The main points of it are that it provides criteria including design form and urban character. It provides that the committee can weigh in on the building's significance, whether that's historic or just architectural significance, not necessarily tied to a listing on the National Register. Structural integrity, economic feasibility, and it provides some standards, definitions, and methods on how that is evaluated. The text is essentially the same for all of the design districts, and a key component of it, I think, is that it still provides for the committee to make the final recommendation. There are provisions, for example, the Economic Review Board to hear the evidence and make a recommendation, but in the end, the power still resides on this committee to approve or deny. And it also gives the committee, even though we've tried to define and tie down various aspects, it still gives the committee the opportunity to ask for various pieces of additional information and how to consider those things. So we are asking for the committee's approval. The downtown portion begins on page 16, if that's what you guys are looking for.
So is this actually a recommendation to the Planning Commission?
Yes.
And therefore on to the
Yes.
the City Council?
Yeah, we've been to all the other review boards. You are our last stop before we queue it up for Planning Commission. and the schedule would have it adopted in June.
So we're looking for a motion for a recommendation for the Planning Commission. Anybody want to do that?
Or answer? It doesn't have one yet.
Demolition?
We've been calling it the demolition ordinance, but it's actually a variety of changes to Section 7200, which is the downtown guidelines. It's there's
7,200
that's most
alterations?
of the 7200 is design guidelines.
Do we have a motion? I assumed you're...
We're asking for a recommendation of approval to Planning Commission. There was a one-page staff report that summarizes and gives somebody something to read off of.
I'd like to make a motion to provide a recommendation of approval of the ordinance amendment to the Planning Commission.
Do we have a second? Second. So that was a Corey and Ike motion. All in favor? You want to discuss it?
Yeah.
No, I just want to say I'm thankful that we've done this, and I really think this is going to be helpful for us and everybody that eventually sits up here. So I think it's a big step in the right direction.
Great, thank you.
So thank you.
Chuck has also been very, very active in trying to move this ahead. So I appreciate Chuck and Gigi and everybody else that has worked tirelessly to get this done, especially the staff. Yeah, they have worked very tirelessly. Okay. Anyway, so any other comments? Any comments from the audience? Okay, so I have it's a Connie and Ike. Oh, no, it's a Corey and Ike motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, we had a bunch of administrative approvals. I'm sorry. We have a preservation plan to be presented by our HP staff person or people.
Yeah, this is, I think most of you know Katie Friddle, and this is Eric Hill, who's our intern. We're very excited to have had an intern the past couple of months, and maybe the main reason Eric exists was to help compile. He didn't know that until today.
The only reason you exist, I promise.
The main reason he exists for us is to compile surveys and reports documenting the historic resources. We've asked Katie, or she's asked, to come and present to all of the boards and commissions to talk about the work they're doing so that the committee knows it's a resource, and if you guys can advise on any opportunities that her work may have in support of the committee's work.
And Katie, is this, welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
And Katie, is this a document that we can find online?
So it's not yet. This is going to be a kind of a phased process, and we're in what we're calling phase 2 right now. So right now, this all lives in the city's GIS. Eventually, hopefully that will all be available online as in some sort of interactive form, and then we'll hopefully also write an actual citywide preservation plan down the road. So we'll just go kind of quickly through what we've been working on. As Lisa said, this is an attempt to work toward a more comprehensive approach to preservation of historic resources across Oklahoma City. For over 20 years, the city has been doing all sorts of historic surveys all over the city. Those live in a wide range of formats in various drawers and shelves, stuffed in nooks and crannies in our department at the State Historic Preservation Office, and are not the most useful documents sometimes. So our big project right now has been to get all of those mapped into GIS, all of those different surveys and National Register nominations. so that they can be evaluated, updated, assess if they're accurate or not, and kind of see what do we know, what do we not know, where should future efforts be directed for additional survey work, for new National Register nominations, and for other tools and incentives to promote preservation of the city's historic resources. So this is the map for the whole city. I looked this morning, we have 20 districts listed on the National Register and 115 eligible districts that are included in this information. We have 1,355 buildings that are included in this database, 105 of which are on the National Register of Historic Places, and then another 488 that are eligible or are within an eligible district. So it's a huge amount of information that we have at our fingertips, and we're excited to make it more accessible to everyone and kind of use that to guide future work. What we're including as historic resources right now are things that have been identified as eligible for the National Register or are already listed. You guys are probably quite familiar with all of that criteria from previous reviews, but we look at age, we look at the integrity, meaning not structural integrity, but architectural historic integrity. Does it look how it originally looked? And the historic or architectural significance. That can be for an individual building, or it can be for a district. A district can be 600 buildings, or it can be 2 or 3 buildings, so a wide range of types of properties. The categories that we're showing on the map are things that are listed on the National Register, things that have been identified as eligible for the National Register, and things that have been specifically identified as not eligible, and that may be because it's not old enough or because it's been heavily altered and no longer has that historic integrity that I talked about. Sure.
Would the Hart Building have been eligible if they hadn't made all the changes to the windows?
You know, I'm not sure what the status of it would have been before that work was done.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I just made that show up. Something that I think is important for people to understand when we look at those categories that can seem very set in stone is that they're actually quite fluid. A property can change from not eligible to eligible, or not eligible to listed, or eligible to ineligible based on as it gets older, obviously, or as changes are made to the structure, or even just with additional research being done on the property. A couple of examples of that is the church that's in Midtown was identified in a survey as eligible. The steeple has been removed, and right now it would not be considered eligible because that steeple's gone. Someone could rebuild the steeple tomorrow and it would be eligible again. So it's a very easy thing to change from one status to another based on the condition of the building. On the reverse side, Main Street Arcade was identified in the downtown survey as not eligible. And when you look at the before picture, that's kind of easy to agree with. More research was done on the history of the building and on the historic appearance of the building. It's being rehabbed, and it is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So we look at that information to tell us is it historic or not, but a lot of times there can be a lot more information that goes into that. All of this information has been pulled from a wide range of survey data, surveys that have been completed by the city, by the State Historic Preservation Office, and by other private entities, as well as federal agencies that are doing things that trigger a Section 106 review. For instance, with moving I-40, they had to do a lot of survey work along those alignments. And most of this information is available on the SHPO's website and our website, just in a wide variety of formats. Quickly, the National Register listing process, things go through our office, through the Historic Preservation Commission, and then to the State Historic Preservation Office, and then on to the National Park Service. And that's only to say that for something to be listed takes some effort and initiative by a property owner or another entity. It's not just an automatic next step because it's been identified as eligible in a survey. And Eric is going to take you through some examples of what we've identified in the various review districts.
Should I skip to downtown? Or?
Can quickly just say.
So basically, here's the Bricktown Core District. As you can see, the eligible properties are listed as green triangles. It might be a little small on your monitors. And then listed are yellow. And then the black and white checkered or striped areas are the districts that have been listed or eligible for these areas. And then I'm just going over specific buildings or districts within each. I'll skip towards the downtown. So the downtown, so same thing. The green triangles on the map are eligible properties. The yellow triangles are listed, and the striped areas are the districts that are either eligible or listed within the area. All right, so first is, I'm just going to go over three specific examples. First is a Skirvin Plaza Hotel. It's located on One Park Avenue. It's a pretty significant piece of Oklahoma City history. It was built in 1911, so just a couple years ago it celebrated its 100th birthday. It's significant for its architecture as well as its commerce in the region. There's pictures of historic and current status. Another one is Kaiser's, which might not be as well known. It was built in 1919 by Anthony Kaiser, who was the owner. He came to Oklahoma City in 1909 with just 50 cents in his pocket, and he started the business. And the current owner is actually interested in preserving the history of the building itself. So he was quoted saying, "I will preserve Kaiser tradition. I want his name to dominate the place, not mine." So it's pretty interesting of how historic properties continue to live on today. And lastly, Automobile Alley. It's located on North Broadway Ave from Northwest 4th to West Park Place and north side of Northwest 10th and Robinson Ave. Its significant dates are 1911 to 1948. Its architectural classifications include commercial, classical revival, and late 19th century American movement. It's a very historic area, mainly around the time that the automobile became prominent in Oklahoma City and the rest of the country. So yeah, there's some history on it. And then skip through all these. And then future work.
Our next kind of steps with this are to continue evaluating what's been surveyed so far, what needs resurveying, and what areas have not been surveyed and need additional research and documentation, and then to use that information to guide whether we need things to be nominated to the National Register or what other incentives and tools could be used to promote preservation in those areas, making this information available to the public and hopefully getting feedback from the general public and from bodies such as this one on some of those priorities for future preservation efforts. And all of this information obviously tells us what's historic. It also tells us areas that would be great candidates for historic tax credits. So I think it's a lot of useful information. And happy to answer any questions or if anybody has suggestions on things to work on.
Very much like the demolition ordinance, this will be, especially as it develops, will be extremely helpful.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. Now, Michael, administrative approvals. Anything big, exciting? This has been a relatively long meeting so far, so.
No, there's nothing really earth-shattering here. The first item is much of a miscellaneous revisions to the park by the Sandridge Plaza, and for the most part, everything else is there's some new Big Billy recycling cans going to be installed, not only here in downtown, but also Bricktown and some other areas of town. And there's some sign approvals, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
One interesting thing I'll point out is it had seemed like it was slow around the office the past month, but then when we printed out the agenda of all the AAs we had done, it's numerically greater than it was a year ago, this date. So Michael's doing a great job of
streamlining.
Of getting through them all.
I did notice that the Cafe do Brasil was having a bunch of roof areas enclosed, and I wasn't aware of that, so I was happy to hear that it had been reviewed. That wasn't something that happened over the weekend.
Well, and just north of that, there was a lot that was scraped. We know about that, north of the hotel?
That's, I think, the Michael Nickel thing.
Okay.
Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Brought that? Is that correct?
Not sure.
Yeah, it's across from the edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a project that came to the committee last year and was approved for a new office building.
Yeah, do you remember? Okay, well, that being said, I feel like we have covered everything. Any other comments from the staff? Any other comments from the committee? Thank you very much. You know what it's like? Well, not exactly. Okay, next meeting is Thursday, March 19th. And do we have applications in already?
Yes, we do.
Oh, these are my people. I'll introduce these people. This is Kathy Bridges and her nephew, Sydney. And Sydney is kind of shadowing me today. So, and Kathy is with Cornerstone Development. She's like Gary Brooks's right hand. So we appreciate that. We want to keep her healthy. He does too. He does too, yeah. Anyway, do we have any, yeah.
Yes, we do.
So how many? Is it a big meeting?
No, it's one that I can think of off the top of my head right now, and it's not a very major project, but it does have to come to the committee because the variance is involved.
Okay.
And you know that the DDRC's decision on 499 on the bus station demo is being appealed.
And what time, what
That's
date?
March 5th
March 5th, yes.
at 1:30.
And aren't we supposed to be hearing the Clayco project, the OG&E project in March? Or
Theoretically in March, but they haven't committed. I think it's queued up for March, but I'm not sure they're going to be actually ready.
Okay. Right. Thank you all very much. I'm going to do this. We are adjourned.